The planet Zephyra was unlike anything Marcus Trent had ever seen. Its sky was a swirling mixture of green and gold, with 3 small suns casting strange, shifting shadows on the thick jungle below. Towering trees with leaves like mirrors reflected the sunlight in every direction. Flowers glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with an unseen heartbeat. Marcus had studied alien worlds before, but Zephyra's beauty made all the charts and reports pale in comparison. Marcus adjusted his helmet and checked the sensors strapped across his chest. His mission was simple. In theory, collect data, study the ecosystem, and ensure that the human research station could operate safely. But as the lead engineer, Marcus knew that theory rarely survived contact with a world as unpredictable as Zephyra. "Status check, Marcus," came a voice over his comlink. "Sensors stable. Temperature readings normal. Air breathable." "So far, so good," Marcus replied, his voice steady even though excitement and nervousness ran through him. "Good. Remember, we're not to interfere with native life forms. Just observe," warned Dr. Ilara Yoon, the mission scientist. Her tone was sharp but calm, the kind of voice that could cut through panic without raising her own heartbeat. Marcus nodded, even though she couldn't see him. He stepped carefully through the jungle, noting the strange flora and fauna. Some plants seemed to move as if alive, others emitted low hums, vibrations so soft he could feel them through his boots. He reminded himself to follow protocol. Observation first. Interference only when necessary. But then, something unusual appeared ahead. A pod, metallic and smooth, half buried in the mossy ground. Its surface reflected the jungle around it, yet there were faint, soft pulses of light emanating from inside. The pod looked old, worn, and clearly not human-made. Marcus crouched, studying it carefully. "Unidentified object detected," he murmured into his comlink. "Pod, unknown origin, appears inactive, but there's some faint energy signature. Requesting guidance." Dr. Yoon's voice returned, tense. "Do not touch it. Keep your distance. We don't know what's inside." Marcus obeyed, but curiosity gnawed at him. The pod had intricate markings that glowed when he held his hand near the surface. Symbols shifted and rearranged themselves, as if responding to his presence. He had no idea what language or logic they followed, but there was intelligence there. Something alive, hidden, waiting. A sudden click echoed from inside the pod. Marcus froze. A light flashed, and a soft voice, foreign and musical, sounded from within. "If you pull it out, I'll scream." Marcus jumped back, heart racing. The voice was unmistakably female, but alien. It carried a strange authority, almost like a command wrapped in a threat. He hesitated, unsure if it was a warning or a trick. "Hello?" he said slowly, trying to calm his racing thoughts. "I'm Marcus. I mean no harm. Can you communicate?" The pod hummed in response. The light inside brightened. "Do not touch the mechanism," the voice repeated, more urgently. Marcus glanced around the dense jungle. There was no one else nearby. Whatever was inside that pod was alone, and clearly scared. A part of him wanted to run, but another part, the part that always faced danger head-on, urged him to act carefully. He crouched and examined the pod. Panels shifted slightly under his touch, as if reacting to his fingers. He noticed delicate tubes, fine wires, and faint energy flows. Pulling or forcing anything could trigger unknown reactions. He reminded himself of Dr. Yoon's warning. Observation first. But observation meant little if the creature inside was in danger. Marcus adjusted his gloves and gently pressed a small button on the pod's surface. Nothing violent, nothing abrupt, just a subtle nudge to test its response. The voice inside screamed not in anger, but pure fear. "No! Stop! Please! If you pull it I'll scream. Marcus froze. His hand hovered over the controls. Clearly, any wrong move could hurt whoever or whatever was inside. He took a slow, deep breath, forcing his racing heart to calm. "Okay," he said softly, speaking almost as if to the creature. "I won't pull anything. I just want to help. Can you show me what's safe?" There was silence for a moment. Then, a thin, holographic projection flickered above the pod. A figure appeared. A tall, graceful woman, with translucent skin that shimmered in the sunlight. Her eyes were large and glowing, and her movements seemed fluid, almost like water. She pointed at a panel with a delicate hand, her expression a mixture of warning and fear. Marcus studied the panel. It seemed to control the internal environment of the pod. A wrong setting could destabilize it entirely. He nodded, careful to keep his movements slow and precise. "You want me to adjust this?" he asked. The figure nodded. Marcus spent the next hour working with her guidance, adjusting controls and stabilizing the energy flows. Every time he hesitated, the holographic figure flinched, as if afraid he might accidentally harm her. Yet, with each careful correction, the pod's internal lights became calmer, the pulsing softer. Finally, the pod opened with a quiet hiss, revealing the alien woman fully. She stepped out gracefully, eyes never leaving Marcus. She was taller than any human, but her movements were delicate, controlled, and deliberate. Marcus extended a hand slowly, cautious not to startle her. "You're safe now," he said. "My name is Marcus. I'm here to help." She tilted her head, studying him. After a tense moment, she spoke in broken but understandable English, her voice softer now. "You did not pull. You listened. You..." "Careful," Marcus smiled, relief flooding him. "I try to be careful." She nodded slightly, then looked past him toward the jungle. Her eyes widened in sudden alarm. "Danger. Coming." Marcus turned, but the jungle seemed still, quiet. Then, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Massive shadows moved between the trees, creatures unlike any Marcus had seen. They were enormous, with multiple limbs and glowing eyes, hunting in packs. "We need to move," Marcus said quickly, taking the alien woman's hand gently. "Follow me. Stay close." She hesitated, then nodded, her trust in him clear despite the fear. Together, they ran through the jungle, navigating over roots, under vines, and around glowing plants that reacted to their presence. Marcus marveled at how quickly she adapted, moving with a grace that even his best training couldn't match. Finally, they reached a clearing where Marcus's team had set up a small observation station. Dr. Yun and the other scientists were stunned to see Marcus emerging with the alien woman. "Marcus, who?" Dr. Yun began, but Marcus held up a hand. "This is Liara," he said. "She was trapped in a pod. We stabilized it without harm. But there's danger in the jungle. She warned me." Liara's eyes scanned the humans, her gaze sharp and calculating. She raised her hand slightly, and a soft glow emanated from her fingers, pointing toward the jungle. Marcus understood. The threat wasn't gone. It was waiting. The team quickly prepared defensive measures, but Marcus realized something important. The real challenge wasn't just survival, it was understanding Zafira and Liara. She wasn't just an alien. She was a key to learning how this planet worked, how its life forms communicated, and how humanity could interact responsibly. And if he failed, the jungle and Liara might not survive. Marcus looked at her. "We'll figure this out. Together." Liara tilted her head and let out a soft hum. Marcus didn't know what it meant exactly, but it sounded like trust, or perhaps gratitude. He would take it. For the first time, Marcus felt a real connection to an alien world, not through data or instruments, but through a living being who had trusted him with her life. The jungle around them was beautiful, terrifying, and alive. And now, he wasn't just an observer. He was part of it. As night fell over Zephyra, the suns dipping below the horizon and casting eerie shadows, Marcus realized that nothing in his training could have prepared him for what came next. The jungle was vast, and its secrets were many. But with Liara at his side, he felt a cautious hope. Somewhere deep in the shadows, the creatures waited. But Marcus wasn't afraid, not completely. Humanity had faced the unknown before, and with ingenuity, patience, and courage, perhaps they could survive the challenges of Zephyra and earn the trust of a world unlike any other. For now, Marcus simply watched the glowing plants, listened to the alien hums of life, and prepared for the trials ahead. Liara stayed close, her warning echoing in his mind. "If you pull it out, I'll scream." He had learned already that listening and understanding was far more powerful than force. The jungle whispered around them, alive with color, sound, and motion. The adventure had only just begun. Morning broke over Zephyra in a burst of golden-green light. The jungle, still damp from the night's mist, shimmered like a living painting. Marcus Trent stepped out of the small human research station, adjusting his equipment and scanning the surroundings. The alien woman, Liara, moved beside him with silent grace. She had spent the night observing the instruments, her glowing eyes reflecting both curiosity and caution. Marcus tried to communicate with her, but he quickly realized the language barrier was more complex than he had expected. Her broken English was understandable in short phrases, but the real understanding came from gestures, expressions, and the way she interacted with the environment. "We need to map this area carefully," Marcus said, pointing to his handheld scanner. "The jungle isn't safe, and there are other creatures out there." Liara tilted her head and emitted a soft hum, then pointed to the scanner's display. Marcus followed her gaze and realized she was trying to indicate specific areas where the jungle's energy was stronger. The pulses from the plants, the hums in the air, they were all alive in ways humans couldn't immediately detect. "Okay," he said, trying to match her rhythm. "We'll go slowly. Watch for danger." They moved forward, stepping carefully around glowing roots and vines that seemed to sense their presence. Marcus couldn't help but marvel at Liara's ability to navigate without hesitation. Where he hesitated, she flowed forward, almost as if she could see paths invisible to human eyes. After walking for what seemed like an hour, they came upon a clearing. In the center was a massive tree with a trunk wide enough to hold 3 humans side by side. Its leaves glowed softly, and delicate tendrils stretched from its bark, pulsing with a soft green light. Marcus held up his scanner. "This tree, it's huge," he murmured. "And the readings are strange. There's energy coming from inside the trunk, almost like it's alive in a different way." Liara stepped closer, her hand hovering over the trunk. Sensitive, careful. "Yes," she said, her voice calm but firm. She tapped the tree lightly with 2 fingers, and the tendrils retracted slightly, as if acknowledging her presence. Marcus watched in awe. "You can communicate with it?" She nodded. "Yes. But danger if wrong." Marcus remembered her warning from the pod. "If you pull it out, I'll scream." He realized now that Liara wasn't just cautious with machinery. She understood the jungle itself, its rules, and its fragile balance. Humans often used force to solve problems. Liara used knowledge, observation, and patience. "All right," Marcus said, lowering his scanner. "Then, we'll observe. Learn first. Maybe we can help without hurting." For the next several hours, Marcus and Liara explored the surrounding jungle. He collected samples and took readings, but he constantly looked to Liara for guidance. Whenever he approached a plant or an unfamiliar object, she would point, gesture, or emit a low hum, directing him to avoid mistakes. At one point, Marcus nearly tripped over a vine that seemed ordinary at first. Liara's hand shot out, catching him gently and stopping him just in time. The vine snapped back violently, almost lashing at where he had been. "You, careful," Liara said softly. "Everything. Alive. Everything. Watch." Marcus nodded, heart racing. The jungle was alive, yes, but it was also full of hidden dangers. And Liara's guidance was the difference between survival and injury. As they moved deeper, Marcus noticed strange footprints, large, three-toed imprints that glowed faintly in the mist. He paused, observing them carefully. "What kind of creatures make these?" he asked, though he already feared the answer. Liara looked serious. "Hunters. Pack. Dangerous." She pointed ahead, then traced a path around the footprints. Marcus followed her lead, understanding that speed alone would not save them. Strategy and careful planning were essential. Hours passed, and they finally reached a small stream, its water glowing faintly blue under the sunlight. Marcus knelt and tasted it cautiously. It was fresh and safe. He motioned for Liara to drink, and she did, tilting her head curiously at the strange human behavior. "They safe?" she asked. "Yes. Clean water," Marcus replied. "But we can't stay here long. Those hunters, they're near." Liara nodded, and together they devised a plan to move quietly through the jungle. Marcus used branches, leaves, and natural camouflage, while Liara taught him subtle ways to move without disturbing the jungle's energy. It was slow work, but necessary. Every step was a lesson in patience and observation. As they progressed, Marcus began to understand the jungle in ways he never had before. It wasn't just a place to survive, it was a network of life, each plant and creature connected through energy and motion. Liara's presence was a bridge to that understanding, and Marcus realized that human ingenuity alone would never have unlocked these secrets. By mid-afternoon, they reached a rocky outcrop overlooking a massive valley. The valley was filled with bioluminescent flora and strange creatures, some of which Marcus had never imagined. Liara stepped forward and extended her hand toward the valley. "Danger." "Yes. But resource. Knowledge," she said. "Learn. Help. Safe." Marcus nodded. He understood what she meant. The jungle itself was teaching them, and only by respecting its rules could they survive and even thrive. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed from the valley below. The hunters were near, and they had noticed something. Marcus felt his heart pound, but he stayed calm, knowing that panic could be deadly. Liara moved instinctively, placing a glowing hand on his shoulder. He felt a faint pulse, almost like a warning, a subtle communication, telling him to wait. The hunters moved quickly, their glowing eyes scanning the forest. Marcus held his breath, following Liara's guidance. Every instinct he had learned in years of training came into play. Step by step, they moved, blending with the jungle, avoiding the hunter's sight. Hours passed. The tension was exhausting, but eventually, the hunters disappeared into the depths of the valley. Marcus exhaled slowly, relief flooding him. He turned to Liara, who nodded faintly. She was calm again, but her eyes reflected the danger they had just avoided. "Good. Human. Careful," she said softly. "Listen. Learn. Survive." Marcus smiled, feeling both pride and humility. He had relied on human ingenuity, yes, but it was Liara's knowledge, her patience, and her connection to Zephyra that had saved them. He realized that humanity's strength wasn't just in technology, it was in adaptability, empathy, and the willingness to learn from others. As they rested near the edge of the valley, Marcus took out his recorder and began documenting everything. The plants, the creatures, the patterns of energy, and most importantly, Liara's instructions and observations. He knew that this knowledge could change humanity's approach to alien worlds forever. Liara watched him with curiosity. "Right. Yes. Careful," she said. Her broken English was improving slightly, but her gestures, expressions, and hums conveyed even more than words could. Marcus paused. "You trust me," he said quietly. Liara's eyes softened. "Yes. Careful. Listen. Yes." The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of green and gold. Marcus realized that night would bring new challenges. Zephyrah's jungle didn't sleep, and the hunters might return. But he felt ready. With Liara at his side, they had a chance not just to survive, but to understand, learn, and grow stronger together. As darkness fell, the jungle came alive in new ways. Bioluminescent plants lit their path, and small creatures scurried unseen. Marcus and Liara moved carefully, always observing, always listening. Every sound, every vibration, was a lesson. Marcus couldn't help but feel a growing sense of wonder. He had come to Zephyrah to study a planet, but he had found something far more valuable. A connection to a living, thinking, breathing world, and to an intelligent being who trusted him enough to share its secrets. They reached a small cave near the valley's edge, safe for the night. Marcus set up a temporary shelter, using materials from the jungle and his own equipment. Liara hovered nearby, observing his work and occasionally helping, her glowing hands moving delicately as she adjusted his tools. Once settled, Marcus finally allowed himself to rest. His mind was still racing with the day's discoveries, but he felt a rare sense of peace. He had survived, he had learned, and he had gained Liara's trust. That trust was fragile, but it was growing stronger with every careful choice he made. Liara stepped closer and touched his shoulder lightly. Marcus felt the faint pulse of energy again, a silent reminder of her warning from the pod, and now a symbol of their partnership. He smiled and nodded. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "we explore more. Carefully. Learn more. Stay safe." Liara hummed softly in agreement. And as the jungle around them pulsed with life, Marcus realized that Zephyrah was not just a challenge, it was a teacher, and he was ready to learn its lessons. The night was long, filled with alien sounds and distant echoes. But Marcus felt prepared. He had ingenuity, courage, and empathy on his side, and now he had Liara. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new dangers, and new discoveries. But for tonight, they survived, and that was the first step toward conquering the mysteries of Zephyrah. The next morning, Zephyrah awoke under a soft mist that hung over the jungle like a silver veil. Marcus Trent stretched and checked his equipment, noting that the energy readings from the previous day were even stronger. The jungle was alive in ways he could feel in his bones. Every rustle, every vibration, carried information. If one knew how to listen, Liara was already awake, standing near the cave entrance. She had spent the night observing the jungle from their temporary shelter, her glowing eyes reflecting intelligence and caution. Marcus noticed how she seemed to understand the subtle rhythm of the jungle, almost as if she were part of it. "Good morning," Marcus said, smiling despite the chill. "Ready to explore again?" Liara tilted her head and hummed softly. "Yes, careful, danger," Marcus nodded. He had learned from experience that every word, every gesture, and every pause from Liara mattered. Today, they needed to go deeper, further into the valley that stretched beyond the glowing trees. They moved slowly, Marcus following Liara's lead. Every step was deliberate. Marcus used his scanner to map the terrain, while Liara guided him around plants and creatures that reacted to the smallest disturbance. At one point, a vine shot out suddenly. But Liara's hand glowed faintly, and it recoiled just enough to allow them safe passage. As they walked, Marcus finally dared to ask a question he had been thinking about since yesterday. "Liara, why were you in that pod? Who put you there?" Quote, Liara's expression darkened, and her eyes flickered with faint shadows. She spoke slowly. "Captive. Taken. Experiment. Humans?" Marcus frowned. He shook his head. "Not us. We found you here. We didn't know what you were. We just wanted to help." She studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slightly, seemingly reassured. "Yes. Careful. Human." Marcus exhaled in relief. He had feared misunderstanding, but trust was growing, slowly. like a fragile plant sprouting through stone. The jungle opened into a wide clearing. In the center, a massive, crystal-like structure rose from the ground. Its surface shimmered and pulsed with energy. Marcus had never seen anything like it. "Liara, what is this?" he asked, approaching cautiously. She stepped forward, her glowing hand hovering above the crystal. "Heart, jungle, life, energy, keep safe." Marcus realized the crystal wasn't just a rock. It was connected to the ecosystem in a deep, almost intelligent way. Pulling or disturbing it could disrupt the balance of Zephyra entirely. "We have to be careful," he said. "Can we study it without touching?" Liara nodded. She placed her hand near the crystal, and faint waves of energy pulsed through her body. Marcus watched carefully, taking notes and scanning from a distance. Every pulse, every shimmer, seemed to communicate something. But only Liara could understand its full meaning. Hours passed as they observed, learning how the jungle communicated through the crystal. Marcus realized that Zephyra was far more advanced than humans had imagined. It was not just alive, it was intelligent, and it reacted to threats and disturbances in ways subtle but powerful. Suddenly, a distant roar echoed through the valley. Marcus froze. He recognized the sound. It was the hunters from the previous day. But this time, they were closer. And there were more of them. Liara's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer to Marcus and placed a hand on his shoulder. He felt the faint pulse again. A warning of danger. "They come, hunt, fast," she said. Marcus checked his scanner. The readings confirmed her warning. Packs of the hunters were moving quickly toward their location. He knew they couldn't outrun them in open terrain. They needed a plan. Liara pointed toward a cluster of large trees. "Climb, hide, wait. Careful," she instructed. Marcus followed. And together they moved to the base of the trees. Using vines and natural footholds, they climbed quickly. The hunters arrived moments later, their glowing eyes scanning the ground below. Marcus held his breath, careful not to make a sound. Liara whispered, "Do not move. They sense fear." Marcus nodded, realizing the hunters were not just tracking movement, they were sensing energy, emotions, presence itself. He focused on staying calm, letting his heartbeat slow. Liara's pulse against his shoulder helped steady him. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the hunters lost interest and moved on. Marcus exhaled slowly, his body relaxing for the first time in what felt like days. "That was close," he said softly. Liara nodded. "Yes. Learn. Survive. Patience." Marcus realized something important. Survival on Zephyra was not about force. It was about intelligence, observation, and mutual understanding. Humanity often relied on tools, weapons, and speed. But here, the jungle demanded something different. Respect, timing, and careful action. As the hunters disappeared, Liara led Marcus deeper into the valley. They approached a smaller crystal, half buried in the ground. Liara gestured for Marcus to kneel and observe. She placed her hands on the crystal and closed her eyes. Marcus watched, fascinated. The crystal began to emit subtle vibrations, and the plants around it responded. Leaves swayed, vines lifted slightly, and small creatures peeked out from hiding places. Liara's connection to the crystal was astonishing. Marcus realized that humans could never understand this alone. Only through trust and cooperation with someone like Liara could they truly learn. "Why, show me this?" Marcus asked. Liara opened her eyes, glowing faintly. "Teach. Careful. Humans. Can. Learn. Help. Jungle. Survive." Marcus felt a surge of pride. Humans had often thought of themselves as dominant. But here, his species could only thrive by listening, learning, and respecting the life around them, and Liara was teaching him how. They spent the next few hours exploring, learning which areas were safe, which creatures were dangerous, and how the jungle communicated through subtle signals. Marcus documented everything. But he also watched and learned, knowing that understanding could save lives far more effectively than weapons ever could. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Liara paused. She placed a glowing hand on Marcus's chest and hummed softly. Marcus felt the pulse of energy again, a silent communication of trust, respect, and shared purpose. They trust you, she said quietly. Marcus smiled. I trust you too. They continued until they reached a high cliff overlooking the valley. The view was breathtaking. The jungle stretched endlessly, glowing softly, alive with movement and energy. Marcus felt a mix of awe and humility. Zephyra was not just a planet to explore, it was a living, thinking world. And he was just beginning to understand it. Tomorrow, more, learn. Careful, Liara said. Marcus nodded. Yes. We'll be careful. But we'll keep learning. Together, night fell, and the jungle pulsed with life in new ways. Marcus and Liara rested near the cliff's edge, aware that the hunters might return. But he felt ready. With Liara's guidance, patience, and wisdom, they could face whatever Zephyra threw at them. Marcus lay back, looking at the stars through the green-gold sky. Humanity often faced unknowns with force and technology, but here, intelligence, empathy, and respect were the true weapons. Liara had shown him that, and Marcus knew that he was becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable not just as a human, but as a partner to this extraordinary world. The night passed quietly, filled with alien sounds and distant echoes. Marcus and Liara were awake and alert, but they were not afraid. They had learned the first lesson of Zephyra. Survival depended on understanding, observation, and mutual respect. As the suns began to rise again, Marcus prepared for another day of exploration. The jungle was vast, full of challenges, but he felt ready. Liara hovered nearby, her eyes glowing with determination. Together, they would uncover Zephyra's secrets, protect its life, and prove that humanity could be both courageous and wise in the face of the unknown. Marcus took a deep breath and smiled. Let's see what today teaches us. Liara nodded, her pulse glowing faintly in affirmation. Together, they stepped into the jungle, ready to face new dangers, learn new truths, and build a partnership that could change the way humans and alien worlds interacted forever. The morning on Zephyra began quietly. With soft mist curling around the glowing plants, Marcus Trent awoke to the hum of the jungle. The energy pulses from the crystals, still vibrating faintly through the ground. Liara was already awake, standing at the cave's entrance, her eyes glowing softly. She had spent the night scanning the horizon, alert for any sign of danger. Marcus joined her, stretching and checking his equipment. Looks calm for now, he said, though he knew better. Zephyra's jungle was never truly calm. It only waited. Liara hummed, tilting her head toward the valley below. Marcus followed her gaze. Something was different. The ground pulses from the crystals were uneven, and the air felt heavier, charged. He could almost feel the tension building. Something's coming, Liara said simply, her voice firm. Hunters. Bigger. More dangerous. Marcus checked his scanner. The readings confirmed her intuition. Several large predators moved through the valley, faster and more coordinated than the hunters they had faced before. Marcus's mind raced. This was not a test of speed or strength alone, it was a test of strategy, observation, and intelligence. We need a plan, he said. We can't outrun them in the open. Liara nodded and gestured toward a series of large, hollowed-out trees along a steep ridge. Hide. Wait. Trap. Careful, she instructed. Marcus understood. They would use the jungle itself, the natural layout, and their knowledge of the predator's movements to survive. He began marking positions with small sensors and sticky markers, all while Liara guided him with her subtle gestures and hums. Hours passed as they prepared. Marcus marveled at how Liara seemed to predict the predator's behavior, almost like she could feel their intentions through the jungle's energy. Humans had technology, but here, intuition, patience, and understanding of the environment were the real tools. Finally, the moment arrived. The predators entered the clearing, massive and terrifying, their glowing eyes scanning for movement. Marcus and Liara were hidden among the hollow trees, perfectly camouflaged. "Wait until close," Liara whispered. The predators approached, sniffing the air, their attention shifting back and forth. Marcus held his breath, feeling the pulse of tension in the jungle and in Liara's guiding hand on his shoulder. When the predators reached the center of the clearing, Liara signaled. Marcus activated the sensors, causing vibrations in the ground that distracted the predators. Simultaneously, he released small holographic projections of light and motion, simulating movement in another direction. The predators hesitated, confused, their glowing eyes darting around. Marcus and Liara used the opportunity to lead them toward natural traps in the jungle pits, dense thickets, and energy fields created by the crystals. The predators stumbled, tripped, and became entangled, unable to continue their pursuit. Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the adrenaline drain. "We did it," he whispered. Liara's eyes glowed brighter. "Yes. Careful. Human. Clever. Survive." They spent the next hour ensuring the predators were safely contained and not harmed. Marcus realized that this was the key to Zephyra's survival. Humans could intervene, but only through intelligence, strategy, and respect for the life around them. Force alone would not work here. With the immediate threat gone, Marcus and Liara moved toward the central crystal, the heart of the jungle. Marcus carefully placed his sensors to monitor the energy flows, while Liara extended her hands and hummed softly, harmonizing with the crystal. The pulses of energy stabilized, spreading evenly throughout the valley. Marcus watched in awe as the jungle itself seemed to exhale, relaxing after the tension. Liara's connection to the crystal had ensured not only their survival but also the balance of the ecosystem. Marcus realized something profound. Humanity often thought of itself as the master of its environment. Here, the jungle taught a different lesson. Survival, success, and harmony came from understanding, respect, and cooperation both with the world and with intelligent beings like Liara. As the suns began to set, casting the valley in golden-green light, Marcus and Liara surveyed their work. The jungle was safe again, the predators returned to their natural patterns, and the crystals pulsed gently, signaling stability. Liara turned to Marcus, her glowing hands lifting slightly. "Humans. Clever. Kind. Help. Maybe. Learn. Trust." Marcus smiled, humbled. "We're learning. And we're grateful. Thank you for trusting me." She tilted her head and hummed softly, the closest she could come to a smile. "Yes. Careful. Together. Survive." Over the next few days, Marcus and Liara continued their work. They mapped the jungle, documented its creatures, and learned how the crystals communicated with the ecosystem. Marcus realized that every day on Zephyra was a lesson in patience, intelligence, and humility. Humans were capable of incredible things, but only if they listened, observed, and respected the life around them. Liara proved to be both a teacher and a partner. Marcus learned to interpret the jungle's subtle signals, to anticipate danger before it appeared, and to use strategy and ingenuity to solve problems without violence. Every successful step reinforced his belief that humanity's greatest strengths lay not in weapons or machines, but in empathy, creativity, and courage. One afternoon, while resting near the central crystal, Marcus asked a question he had been pondering. "Liara, can humans help other worlds like this? Without destroying them?" Liara's eyes glowed softly. "Yes, if careful, listen, respect, learn, work together." Marcus nodded. "We'll try. We must try." Liara placed her hand on his shoulder again, sending a faint pulse of energy through him. Marcus felt a deep sense of connection not just to Liara, but to Zephyra itself. Humanity had been given a lesson in survival, intelligence, and partnership. and it was his responsibility to carry that knowledge forward. Days turned into a week. Marcus and Liara became a team. Blending human ingenuity with alien intuition, they navigated the jungle safely, documented its secrets, and even began to teach the other humans on the research station how to move carefully, observe keenly, and respect the world around them. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, Marcus and Liara reached a cliff overlooking the valley. The jungle glowed beneath them, peaceful and alive. Marcus felt a surge of pride and humility. He had survived Zephyra's dangers, learned its lessons, and earned the trust of an extraordinary being. Liara's pulse of energy against his chest was steady and calm. Human, clever, brave, kind, hope, she said softly. Marcus smiled, feeling the weight of the adventure and the significance of what they had accomplished. "We'll protect it, together," the jungle around them whispered in response. A symphony of life, energy, and harmony. Marcus realized that Zephyra had changed him. Humanity had faced many challenges before, but this planet had taught him something unique. Survival was not just about strength. It was about intelligence, understanding, and the courage to listen. That night, as Marcus prepared for rest, he looked at Liara and the glowing valley below. The hunters had been dealt with, the crystals stabilized, and the jungle thrived. Humans had faced an unknown world, and had not just survived, they had learned, adapted, and forged a partnership with life unlike anything they had known. Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Humanity had shown ingenuity, courage, and empathy. And with Liara by his side, he knew they could face whatever challenges awaited them in the future. The suns rose the next morning, bathing Zephyra in golden green light once again. Marcus and Liara prepared to continue their exploration, knowing that new mysteries awaited. But they were ready. They had survived the tests of the jungle, learned its lessons, and proven that humans, when careful, clever, and courageous, could be a force for understanding and harmony. As they stepped into the jungle, Marcus glanced at Liara. "Ready for the next lesson?" she hummed softly, her glow bright and steady. "Yes. Together. Learn. Survive. Careful." And with that, they moved forward. Two allies in a vast, living world, proving that intelligence, empathy, and courage could triumph over danger, and that humanity had a place among the stars as a species capable of wisdom, kindness, and heroism. The jungle pulsed around them, alive with secrets and possibilities. Marcus smiled. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them with ingenuity, courage, and understanding. Zephyra had taught him well, and humanity had grown stronger, one careful step at a time.